Hello and welcome to the Red Room. Our guest today is Raven Wulfgar. Hi, Raven.
Hello.
How you doing? It's good to be here.
Welcome.
It's
Thank
hot here today in the red room.
Yeah,
It's
it's
very hot.
red hot. We're still in the summer.
Yeah, it's very hot here. Well, it was better, but now it's awful again. I shouldn't have put a black t-shirt. Just say. Not smart. Yes.
Let me tell you about heat. Being light sensitive, I pretty much have to walk around with long sleeves all the time. So a walk to work can be pretty awful and very oppressive heat.
And you have to wear a cap, right? I assume.
Yeah, I'm pretty much wear a
Yeah.
ball cap or my cowboy hat, one of the two.
So, how's the weather there right now?
Right now, let's see. Probably a little warm. It's like about like in the mid 70s, 80s, somewhere in there. So we've gotten a little bit of a break, but I mean, up until then, we did have that like 90 to triple digit heat wave that went on, and now my living room is cold right now, and I'm wearing shorts.
We're back again on that. It's summer. Enough talk about weather. Just that I'm feeling like the heat.
Like anything to get my mind off this.
Okay, so let's introduce you. You're a role player, obviously.
Definitely, but I do like to say that I've been in it since I was a teenager. The problem is, small town in the South, very restricted access to it. A lot of very extreme evangelicals, hopping on what they saw on TV and, getting beside themselves. So it created kind of a gap in what we could play or what we, could even get access to at the time. So didn't get to play much. I got to play more and more as years went on, but moved to the Northeast where that doesn't exist. I've got one gaming store within walking distance of me. I've got another comic shop within walking distance of me, and they're talking about bringing in tabletop role-playing games. And of course, the internet has never made anything more freely available than it is today. So all the barriers to entry have been removed. The only problem is finding players, finding players who will accept, okay, here's the setting, here's how we're going to do it. If you think you're going to have a problem with it, now's the time to, leave, because most of them are going to sit around. You're always going to have that one that I demand this, and you're like, nah, nah, I don't think you should be playing this one. I think you might want to sit this one out.
Do you have enough players? Well, we can start with that one. Well, I guess at least for my impression, in the States, it's always easier because here in Portugal, we have almost nobody playing, and most of the people they are playing D&D or narrative games or just war games in general. So it's very hard.
Lots of story games here.
Yeah.
There was when it was fashionable, lots of people started playing story games, and I don't think they changed it.
Yeah, and like D&D was one that initially the way it was completely forbidden for me to play this game. Never mind, I watched the cartoon as a kid. A cartoon I still have on
when
my
was
phone.
that?
This was the 1980s.
Oh yeah.
And my earliest run-in with this kind of mentality was a couple of friends and I were talking about the D&D cartoon at school. I was probably about in the 4th or 5th grade at the time. And I looked to one friend, I was like, hey, did you see this? It was a pretty awesome episode. And he's like, I'm not allowed to watch that. And I went, wait, why? And he's like, well, my parents tell me it's evil. He also wasn't allowed to watch like Masters of the Universe, which I thought was like a little weird. I'm like, well, these are stories about, fights between good versus evil. Good tends to come out on top. Well, where's the problem? And then I met his parents, and at his place we were allowed to watch, which is really ironic, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Legend of Zelda. I was like, Legend of Zelda, we could really watch this? how does that work? I'm not getting this logic. But that was the first run in with I had with it. So one year I get Hero Quest as a Christmas gift, and I'm showing it to my friends. We're looking at it. We're like, isn't this sort of like D&D? And we just kind of like played it as it was, and then I realized, yeah, this is kind of like D&D. You got the screen there. One person runs, sets up the map, runs the game. It's a dungeon crawl. And I was like, that's pretty cool. Well, then one of my friends brought GURPS into it, and we all went through that book. That book got passed around a lot. We ended up formulating, just taking rules out that would work, put it to this, and we had our own version of it until that same friend brought Intro to AD&D First Quest in. And that was the start of everything. When we opened the box, we saw the miniatures for the heroes were the exact miniatures for the Hero Quest game. And I was like, oh, yeah, here we go. All right, official D&D. Cool. But that was second edition. And we played through a little bit of Karamikos, Kingdom of Karamikos. We played through a little bit of that. And then they started going to other schools, which just left me there. So I'm there with like nothing. And I think Vampire the Masquerade was a big thing. TSR, I remember KB Toys like clearancing out a ton of TSR stuff. I bought what I could. But Vampire was like kind of the go-to game for a while. Even though I had Mage the Ascension, I had Wraith the Oblivion, no one wanted to play them. And I was like, come on, let's do something different every once in a while, but never happened. And then I lost all those books when I moved to the Northeast. So I went from having just a very small library of material to nothing. And I just really didn't think about it. But now in the last couple of years, I'm like, Second Life just wasn't cutting it. Video games, there's too much non-traversy to controversy around them, and I'm just like not interested now. And I remember tabletop role-playing was where you sat around a table with friends. There was always a mutual respect there, and the jerks didn't last long. Back then, you could easily weed them out. It was pretty easy to do, and everybody had a great time, and there were a lot of fond memories of the few times I was able to play. So I got back into that, and thanks to guys like you, my physical library has never been bigger. My digital library, if I were to print that entire thing, would probably take every wall in the apartment here, and I wouldn't have room for furniture or places to put my clothing.
I don't have my old books. I got rid of everything through the years, but I was also always buying new stuff. So if I had everything, I would probably have a room full of books. But I sold them along the way. When I stopped playing, I sold or traded with some other folks or gave them away. So I didn't keep the old
What
ones.
did you start playing?
Well, the first thing I started, it wasn't quite role playing. It was those books. How was it called? Fantasy Fight, Fighting Fantasy, Fighting Fantasy. That's it. With the numbers, where you go from. So it was my first experience with something that was close to role playing games. But then in 1989, there was a translation of the Red Box set for Dungeons and Dragons for Portuguese, and I bought it, and that's when I started, kind of, because it was difficult to find players. No one here where we live. This is the suburbs, small town, basically in the suburbs. In Lisbon, I think there were many people playing. Well, many people playing anyway, and there were stores already, but not much, not many stores, just a couple of them. Here there was nothing, and people didn't know what's a role-playing game, and I basically played with a guy that still plays. Well, he stopped playing, but now he's playing with us again. We were the guys who were trying to find other people, and we invited people from the school, but they weren't really interested. They played, but basically that was when we started. A couple of years later, we found some people who were really interested in role playing too, and then things got well. We started having a group for real game sessions. We started with Dungeons and Dragons, obviously. But then we moved on quickly. About 2 years later, I got a bit fed up of fantasy, and I started looking for other stuff. I'm not really sure what was the first thing that I think it was Call of Cthulhu, but I'm not entirely sure because at that time I bought several things and then I was trying to choose. But horror was obviously my first choice after fantasy because when I bought Dungeons and Dragons at first I didn't even know there was uh, that all those options. I thought, okay, this is the game. It's Dungeons and Dragons. It's the game. It's fantasy.
Right.
We can't play anything else. But then the next year I went to England and I was looking at game stores and I found out that there was a lot of things out there.
Oh, I bet you were overwhelmed when you first saw
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
Yeah, I still remember. I still remember. We used to go. There was a mall about 45 minutes away from where I lived, so that was the closest thing we actually had to a gaming store because they stocked D&D and I think a couple of other ones that at the time I looked at and went, okay, because my all the hype was around D&D, all the taboo was around D&D, and so I would I'd go in there and they had comic books and stuff like that, but after a while I just kind of slipped over. I had to kind of sneak my way around the store to make myself into that aisle, which was sizable, bigger than Barnes and Noble's little D&D section is now. And I would just stare at these books and I found out very quickly couldn't take one off the shelf and start flipping through it because naturally I'd just be snatched by the arm by an adult and yanked out of there. So they're like, oh, no, 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 you can't look at that, put that back. And I'm like, oh, come on. So I would just kind of sit there and stare at the covers and kind of do this little thing and pull one off and just kind of look at the back, put it back. And I didn't even know KB Toys had stocked any D&D stuff at the time until they were clearancing it out. And I just went in to see what they had. And sure enough, there they were. The box sets and Encyclopedia Magica and stuff like that. And by that time I'm about, I don't know, 19, 20 years old. So I'm like, yeah, boy, I just got paid. I'm gonna totally buy some stuff tonight. And I'd walk out with a big bag full of TSR stuff, and it's sitting in my car, and I'm driving home, and I'm like, okay, I need to get home just late enough that the parents don't see this. I mean, my dad would have been okay with it. It's my mom who's the prohibitionist. So I'd stop at a coffee shop, hang out there for a little while, look at my watch. Okay, time to go. Get home. Okay, parents are asleep. Go move it into my shelf in my closet. There we go. We're good to go now. Everything's good until my mom saw me reading Encyclopedia Magica over a cup of coffee the next day. And she's like, "What is that?" And I'm like, "I don't know. It looks like a collection of articles." And I'm just sitting there flipping through it. I'm like, "Yeah, I better hide this a little better." So, it was stuff like that when I first stepped foot into like just Walden books in general, or even this one comic shop, Paper Heroes. They sold a fair bit of that stuff. When I first laid eyes on like Vampire the Masquerade, Cyberpunk, Shadowrun, and all these titles, I was like, just how many of these other games are there? And I already knew of GURPS, already knew of D&D at the time, but now I'm looking at it and I'm like, how many more games are there? Because I don't know how many genres they cover. I'm seeing horror, I'm seeing sci-fi. I'm like, what else is there? And at the time, there's no internet, so it's not like I could go home with a few keystrokes. Whoa, whoa, baby! And I'll be honest, I didn't even know solo RPGs were a thing until last year, and that surprised me because here it is, we're in the middle of COVID, and solo RPGs are a thing. Oh, this is the friendly stay-at-home social distance bundle or whatever, and it's full of solo RPGs. And I'm looking at them, and some of them were really good, like The Gentleman Bandit, and then another one, The Gentleman Bandit, Dark Highways, where essentially, yeah, you play a gunslinger, but at the scene of your killings, you leave a poem. So you draw a card, and that card sets the tone. Then you write out a poem about your kill. And I'm like, that's pretty cool. And then Dark Highways, you're the ghost of the character. So I'm like, that's cool. So even if you die in this game, you can still carry on. That's awesome. Just little concepts like that, amaze me. And I was more amazed. I kind of veered off D&D because the concepts of other games were just so amazing. I'm watching all these writers put this stuff out there. Like, you could play a vampire, or you could play a modern day mage, or you can play a werewolf, a hunter, or even a ghost. And when I saw Wraith the Oblivion, I was like, think of all the characters that I have ever had die in an RPG. Now I can bring them back. That is awesome. So stuff like that, I was kind of thinking about this from like an earlier age. We're talking like 19, 20, 21 years old. And what's odd is I had a bunch of roomies. None of them wanted to play. They were all too intimidated by how many rules there were in the books. I'm like, just let me run the games. I can explain this stuff. And they were all too chicken shit to do it. I'm like, come on.
I kind of
What
had
am,
the same
what am I
problem.
gonna do?
I didn't, well, first, well, I knew role playing, not role playing games, the, how they call the hero, the Aventuras Fantásticas.
Fighting
Yeah, the
fantasy.
fighting fantasy. So I learned about the fighting fantasy books. All my friends,
A lot of people
yeah,
here
here.
play that, but they didn't
Yeah,
move
and all of
on to
them
role
actually
play.
in my group was like 4 girls, and we're all completely addicted to it. If we knew role plays, and we were about 12 at that time, if we knew D&D existed, we probably would move on to D&D. So when I found out role playing games existed, I had nobody to play.
And
That's really sucked.
what's really weird is, like, I'm saying, like, the solo RPG, I just found out that existed last year. I'm probably lying because I remember our school would host these scholastic book events where they have all these books from all different authors, and sometimes they just, if they didn't have the event, they'd have a catalog. And so if you had money and you went in for a couple bucks, you could buy just about any book you wanted. And I remember seeing, for the first time ever, there was this stack of books nobody was buying from it, and these books might have been like, I don't know, $2 to $4 a piece, and they were the choose your own adventure books.
Mhm.
And it was just this one stack, one title, Space Vampire, and I looked at it and I went, oh, this looks amazing. So I bought one. I took it home, and as I'm flipping through it, I remember thinking, this is great. This is, I don't know how they did this, but this is awesome. Um, my parents actually bought me, which is really weird. My parents actually bought me about 2 or 3 more of those, but one of them was Villains of Volturnus from TSR, the very company that made D&D, the one thing I was not allowed to play. And it was such a great thing because, it should have occurred to me when I'm seeing this at like 19, 20 years old. Wow, what else is there? It should have occurred to me from my childhood. Hey, there's other stuff like this out there, and you should check it out. And seeing these, like, role playing games like Four Against Darkness, Mythic, and all that stuff that converts all these games for you was just it's a blessing, especially when you, or even Fabled Lands, which I have played a lot of and I love this series. Fabled Lands is one of those books that's not quite like the Choose Your Own Adventure books. This one has a dice mechanic, it has a character sheet, and it's a lot more involved. And at one point, everything I had ever gained, I lost in a pyramid because it shrunk me down. I couldn't carry it. I'm like, oh, that sucks. So it has real consequences for your actions. And people were telling me, just flip back to your page. I'm like, I lost my page. I can't find
Yeah,
it.
I did that sometimes, and I'm tired of rolling because fighting fantasy you had to roll combats, and I'm sick. I won. I don't care.
And that's what Fabled Lands has, but you roll more when you're on your ship on the open seas, not so much when you're like, I mean, you do roll for combat, but there's so little of it that it makes more sense for it to be on the sea. But like when you're tired of rolling, it's like, okay, I gotta find a port. This is getting stupid. But once you do, then you're pretty much home free for a while. Then you're just kind of flipping pages and, marking stuff down on your character sheet or erasing things. And I just used an index card for my character sheet because it holds everything. It works. And I've seen index card RPG, which I haven't checked out yet, but it's one I am thinking about. But I gotta say this, like your settings, the stuff that you guys created, I think it's kind of funny because like you mentioned you're tired of fantasy, but the first thing I saw from you guys was Wretched Bastards, your
Yeah.
fantasy game, and I was like, this concept is so awesome. That this is like, yes, you're given permission to play a completely shitty character. Like, yes,
That's
this is
the
great.
idea. If we have to do fantasy, and he was like, no,
Yeah.
but we're not going to be heroes.
I knew that well, when I was starting to publish something by myself, I had to start by fantasy because that's always what gets people's attention.
Yeah,
So
that's
I
the
had to come
intrigue.
up with the
Yeah.
concept that I could play, even if I usually don't like fantasy. I can play those heroic fantasy games, and I can play them. It's not,
Yeah.
not big. But a bastard, okay, a bastard I can play.
Yeah. And what's interesting is like we're mentioning like fantasy is usually kind of like the first thing people see, whether it's D&D or some other system. They see that and they go into something else a little bit later. Hopefully they don't start like, bowing before WotC and becoming, these vehement defenders of WotC for some reason. But when I went through fantasy and into like gothic horror and other stuff, one of the things that just came up when I got Starship Warden, they sent me Saving Wren and the deck expansions for free. Well, I wasn't really expecting it. I saw it after I'd already made the purchase. And I'm like, wonder what that's all about. But I was more looking forward to just the book itself, which is colossal. And then I peeked into the Saving Wren book, and the very introduction is written by a guy who played with Gygax. And he said he had just written Metamorphosis Alpha. They played it a couple times, and middle of a D&D session, Gygax looks at him and says, "Hey, did you bring Metamorphosis Alpha?" And he's like, "Well, it's in the car." He goes, "Well, go get it." So he goes to the car and gets it. He comes back to find Gygax has taken his seat, and the DM chair is empty. And Gygax is just giving him this big grin, like, "Go ahead, take it." And what they did was they took his character, the Elven Prince Wren, they wrote it to where he took a portal, didn't know where it went, but he ended up on the starship. And now he has to find a way back. And that's what that book is. I'm like,
I was going to write an adventure, damn it.
I was like, wow. This I've got to play at some point. It looks really cool. But the great thing about today is barriers to entry have never been lower. Ease of access has never been greater. The availability is staggering. And there are probably more RPGs that I currently own, both in digital and physical, than I'll ever be able to play. And I still want like Castles and Crusades, OSE and print, stuff like that. But what's great about it is that you can take all this stuff and now you can kind of mix it together to your own taste. And it's so much better now than it was. I know there are things going on with the RPG scene now that aren't great, but with the advent of like programs like this, you can play over Zoom, you can record it, an actual play podcast. There you go. Doesn't take much, just takes a good microphone on a pair of headphones, good webcam, and a good set of players and a DM, and you're all good to go. And that's what I think is so great about it. Even people like Victor, who's always on like T-Shirt Historians podcast and Basic Experts podcast, he's in the same boat I'm in. He doesn't really have anybody to play with, so he plays exclusively online. Just personally, like I don't like virtual tabletops. I just really don't. I would rather, meet with you guys here on Zoom on whatever
Yeah.
night.
Zoom works better.
exactly,
I
or
agree.
gilded, or something
Yeah.
like that. And what I'll do is one of the maps that I drew for, say, a dungeon or a starship or just a city, I'll use my scanner to scan it in. I'll share a screen with that,
Yeah.
and everybody can tell where they are.
That's what I do. Yeah,
It
that's
it keeps me honest, so I can't say, oh yeah, that guy that was like 500 feet away from you is now like right next to you. So that's kind of the route I go, because I'm from the old school. I love the whole your table, your rules, my table, my rules. We'll leave it at that. And that's the kind of thing it facilitates. And I think now if we do this right, it brings people together instead of tearing people apart. And it's really not one group or another, except it's the professional victims crowd that's just tearing everything up because, you know, it's all about whatever it is they've suffered.
yeah.
And it's like I like to tell people, look, I posted this morning. I didn't see myself in a game of D&D. When I rolled my character, I was this hulking barbarian with this colossal sword that went psycho on a bunch of like goblins rushing at him. And that's because I spent a lot of my time getting chased around, getting my ass kicked, winding up, in places I would rather not be, scars I'd rather not have. Uh, you know, there are some like joint problems I have now because of those times. They're lingering effects. I don't make it all about that though. I'm in to play a game. I'm in to get out of, what sucks right now. And even if it sucks for my character, it's still better than what I'm facing. Maybe I'm okay with my character suffering, as long as it's not me.
Yeah, I don't want my traumas on my I don't want my life experience traumas on my game. It's not real life
Exactly. Yeah.
anymore.
Of course, people
Exactly.
always take something from themselves.
So you will meeting will
Yeah,
end in 10 minutes. Yeah,
fuck. They really
yeah.
apply this everywhere.
So we need to stop and
Yeah,
restart.
okay. In
Yeah,
10 minutes, I think it's just
yeah. I had good news. So the kitten will be coming home today.
okay.
Oh,
Yeah,
good,
Oh,
good. I
yeah.
was I
yeah.
was wondering how Kitty was doing.
Yeah, she still needs to get some. She needs to go to the vet to get one shot once a day, but she will be able to get home.
So, what was it she was allergic to?
They're not sure. So they put here in Portugal it's called frontline. You know the thing to kill the fleas. Yeah,
Yeah.
and she got probably because she's very small. She got an allergic reaction to it. She got a wound. Then we went to the vet, and our vet was stupid and just gave me a cream that he had, but probably was not the best one. And then it made it even worse. Then she got fever. So she
Oh
had to
no.
go to another vet that is a hospital, and she was there. But then she still has the plaquettes very low, probably because they have problems taking blood because she's very little.
Yeah.
And then she had an allergic reaction, and she got all poofed like a hamster.
Yeah, I saw
Probably
that.
because she was biting the cage. They don't know, but I think it was because she was biting the cage, so she probably hurt it. But she's doing
Oh.
better now. She has no fever. She's eating, and I want my cat back. They're trying to steal her because she's really cute and she's always on someone's lap there. And they're like,
Yeah.
"Dude, I want my
And
cat back."
I would bring Bub on, but he's on the back of the couch, like curled up and
Sleeping.
sleeping.
Yeah.
He's in his favorite spot. I got
The
the
other ones are
couch
sleeping too.
dented in. That's where he sleeps. So if I go over there and try to pet him, he'll try to bite me. I'm pretty sure of it.
Yeah, the other three are all asleep in different corner.
Yeah.
That's the nature of cats, though. They will, if I fits, I sits. That's just how they are. And Bub's got a box up under the coffee table where I do a lot of my work, whether it's tarot or drawing maps or making notes for a horror game. He's there. He's curled up in it, and he's a big chunky morph ball just sleeping there.
So you haven't thought about writing some content for role-playing games? A game
Yeah,
or whatever
yeah.
else?
Actually, right now I'm just like I've got 3 different things going. I've got a setting book for 10 Candles. It also has some optional GM rules. Not many, but a few. And that one I'm calling it Selected Scenes from the End of the World. And that one got started because I did Lockdown in the Dollhouse, which was you know, actually inspired by Retroploitation, believe it or not, because as I was reading it, I noticed you guys dropped in, the old women in prison movies, and I was like, I used to work in one. What would that scenario be like
Mhm.
if, like I worked in one for almost 10 years. So I could tell you a blackout in one of those places, because we had multiple blackouts during the aftermath of a hurricane that came through. That alone is scary. But when everything is just failing little by little, the inmates are on edge, the officers are on edge. Nobody wants to be there. Nobody. Everybody wants to be home protecting their families, and nobody can. So that's a seriously high level of tension. And on top of that, you're talking cramped spaces, closed quarters, and they're after you. They're after all of you. And they can take the form of your absolute worst fear. I'm like,
Yeah.
that's a horror setting. that that is like crazy horror right there. It's almost turned up to 11. And then I did a little mechanic, which I'll go ahead and reveal it here. And it's kind of a playful, elbow nudge to it. The adrenaline card. So this is an optional rule where you can hand out index cards to all your players and say, okay, everybody write down your absolute worst phobia. This is what you'll use for your character. So this will be your character's worst phobia. They turn them on in. They turn them all in. You can flip through them, and these are the forms that they will take. So if you got like a devout character, these are going to be like serpentine demons. If you've got someone who's afraid of clowns, they'll come out of the woodwork, shooting off a fire extinguisher, screaming, "Why don't you want my fucking ice cream?" or something like that. Just something that just absolutely scares the daylights out of them.
It's like inverted X cards.
Exactly. So it's the not really the anti-X card. What did you not get about this? Is a horror game.
Yeah.
And I got it because I was like, if someone, I bring out a D&D setting and someone's like, I demand you use the X cards. Does everyone agree? Okay, hack up all the D&D stuff. We're playing 10 Candles. Go ahead and list all your stuff. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, it's just because
tell me what you're afraid of.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, it's one of the things I learned working in the prison. It's like, I might give you what you want. It might happen, but you're probably not going to like how you get it. It's just one of those things. So we learned all kinds of ways we could, kind of skirt our own language. And I think that's a lot of what's going on today. And I'm like, hey, turnabout's fair play. Do that yourself. And if you don't feel like using the adrenaline card, that's fine. I mean, especially if it's around a group of people you already know, you're already familiar with, you're going to see that kind of thing. You're going to know what they're into, what they're not, and kind of leverage it to your advantage. Once it happens, though, I can tell you just from having, I actually played one game of 10 Candles that was before the COVID thing hit. It was a lot of fun, and yes, it was really terrifying. It was a pretty hairy game to play. A lot of tension, a lot of excitement, and at the end of it, yeah, not one character survived. It was kind of crazy. And the thing was, I didn't tell any of my players that that's what happens to your character. I just kind of let it happen. So when the last two thought, okay, we've jettisoned from the ship, Captain's going to reignite the sun and the solar sails are going to carry us back. That first big flare hit and it incinerated them. It was like, well, no, not so much. But, since you guys were successful in restarting the sun, there are statues erected in your honor, of course. And they're like,
You
part of horror.
Can you play 10 Candles online? Or is it impossible?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Like you could set this kind of thing up right here. I've seen YouTube actual plays of it. The one I saw though didn't really come across like 10 Candles. It just looked like kind of this petty story they were telling, which, you know, I kind of checked out after a couple of hours. I was like, geez, how long is this going to go? Because really these sessions are only supposed to last 2 to 3 hours. But yeah, you could totally do it online. Probably not true to the book in every way, but it can still be done. And you could have like basically the way it's supposed to be played is you have 10 tea light candles. You have everybody's got index cards. Everybody helps with each other's characters, probably not in the way you like. And then it's going for narrative control of the game. As each scene ends, a candle is extinguished, and once it's down to the last candle, then that's the moment everything really kicks into gear. And when that last candle's extinguished, everyone's dead. That's it. Game over. So it's not so much whether you win or lose, just like any RPG. It's from the time you start playing until the time your character dies, what do you do in that time? Because your characters don't know. These are their last moments.
So yeah, we're talking about 10 candles.
Okay, so yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, that fear thing also reminds. No, we talked about it on Twitter. Damn it, I'm stupid today. Event Horizon, and that thing, right? That is the fear of the thing that the guys fear the most. It's what comes to haunt them.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what attracted me to Starship Warden so much. Was first that first was a coupon code. So I'm like, okay, well, they're saying it's like less than $40, so let's go see what it is. When I read the description, I was like, well, this is Event Horizon if we were more focused on what happened to them and not so much the rescue mission. But I mean, it does have some big differences. But I thought, how cool would that be to run a 10 candles game on that ship? You know, they don't know that the sun's gone dark. You know, they're millions of miles away from Earth. They haven't been heard from in 300 years. And now this is happening to them. The whole starship is starting to break down, and they're coming out of the shadows, creeping around bit by bit. That's got to be a terrifying thought, especially a ship, what was it, 60 miles long, 25 feet high, or 25 miles high, 6 miles high, and 25 feet wide. That is a collection of cities floating through space, and you know, trying to make your way up to the observation deck, because I imagine that's where the command bridge is. Trying to get there to get answers, or trying to reunite with a loved one, or trying to save a child. You know, which anything can happen on this thing. And that's what I like, where you have possibilities and anything can happen. I love that, because it really, you know, when you put that in front of your characters or your players are going to be like, so I can pretty much do anything within reason. Yes. You know, okay. Let's start. How do we get into that? When it's kind of a more narrow setting, I think characters can feel a little restricted, but if that's what they came into to begin with and they're used to that, this can seem a little overwhelming. It just kind of depends on where you go, but the Starship Warden, it's an open sandbox, same as 10 Candles. I could set 10 Candles in St. Cloud easily. That setting loans itself so well to 10 Candles. And then, you know, use AFM as like a supplement for creating the whatever they are, because nothing's ever said about what they are. Nothing's ever said about how the sun went out. All you know is it's full dark, no stars. Technology's failing. What do you do? You know, your flashlight that you have right now may have been your trusty sidekick for the last several years, but now it could go at any time. And the object is stay in the light, because that's their weakness. That's their only weakness, is light. So staying in the light, you know, I mean, you get down the road in your bus, suddenly it breaks down. You know, you're in the light of a gas station. You open the hood there. You look down, you see deep claw marks in the engine block. You know, hey, it was dark under there. They probably sabotaged your engine. I've got another couple settings that I'm coming up with. One's called they them. So we're playing the pronoun game because that's what they are. You know, it's a little, like I said, little playful wink and nudge, but you have it's one where I turn up the paranoia because you may have a saboteur in your group. Who is it, or are they there? You know, you have no idea. So I use that little element to kind of turn the paranoia up. And can you get out of and I'm still settling it in Caldwell, but there's going to be a highway out. You got to get out of Caldwell into a military base in Colorado. So do you have a saboteur among your group? If so, who? Or is everyone just kind of like looking at each other like, I know about me, but I don't know about you, pal. You know, someone may be sympathetic to them. You know, someone may be serving them, someone may be worshiping them. You just don't know. And that's what I leave up to the person who's running the game. You know, answer any one of those questions, and there's your setting. And you could still play it again and explore other options. So that's really what I'm looking for with that. The horror game is just right now. It's just a collection of notes. I don't know exactly where I'm going with it yet. I just want to create a horror scenario, or at least a game where the GM and players alike kind of walk away going, "What the hell did I just play? What just happened?" You know, I really kind of want that shock to set in, and you know, maybe it bugs them for a little while. You know, maybe it's suffer just that touch of post traumatic stress from it, and then they realize that was exciting. I want to do it again. You know, it's like going to that first haunted house when you were a kid, or that, you know, riding that first roller coaster. After a while, you can't get enough of it. You know, and then you just kind of turn up the heat as you need to. Because the one thing I'm going to put in all of my books, including Greyhorn, which is I call it a pseudo fantasy setting because there's going to be some historical stuff in there. It's going to be set in I'll say a mythical analog for Scandinavia. It's going to center on sort of like Viking culture and things like that. But the thing that I impress in all of these books is once that book's in your hands, I got no say in how you run it. But if you decide that you're going to play in a game with me, you might want to keep in mind this is the way that book's going to be played. At your table, though, have at it. If you want to include pronouns for some you know, some Viking character, I got no say so in it. Go right ahead. I don't care. But once you come to my table, that's not going to be a thing. The orcs are going to be evil because they're evil spirits, which is really what that term translates to. But that's kind of beside the point. That's just kind of how I really wanted to go with it, because I personally, if I'm going to create something, I want you to be as excited about it as I am. And that's it. It's just going to be a game, something you and I and everyone else can enjoy. So there's not going to be any political bent to it. There's not going to be social commentary. There's no allegory for contemporary artistry or whatever. Just is what it is. Jump in if you want to, and if you don't, you know, I'm sure Watsy will love to have you. that might be more your thing. I don't know.
Okay. What really annoys me, and just putting in, is when they say, you see that on Twitter, that, oh, why are you so offended? Because nobody's offended. Like the sign language on D&D. Nobody was complaining about that. You are the ones creating but they are doing it, even with the TV shows, right? Oh, people are offended. No, they're not. They don't care.
No, nobody cares. I'll tell you personally, if I have to be offended at anything, it's really only one thing, just one. And this is something I think should be a concern to everyone. Let's talk D&D Beyond for just a moment. D&D Beyond's own terms of service clearly states that if you have a homebrew campaign or setting and you put it into D&D Beyond, Wizards of the Coast owns it. Why would you possibly give them permission? Well, actually, better question, why would you pay WotC to write for them? That, and for people like, I don't know how many people kind of lean to the left on this particular podcast, but my question to them is, I know that many of you out there really impress the point that we as employees of some company or some other person have 90%, I don't know where they get the statistic, but that's to that point, 90% of our productivity is just stolen from us. Okay, but why would anyone, left, right, center, whatever, advocate or defend a company telling you you'll pay us to write for us and this will be a good thing? Because number one, what they will do is they will take your product, they will look at it, they will hollow it out, they will crush it up, they will crap out your supplement, and it will be unrecognizable. It'll be a husk, a shell of its former self. You will get no credit, you will get no percentage, you will get nothing out of the deal. You have essentially paid WotC to write for them. I don't, if that's going to be in the terms of service, then I say I don't accept. I will never do that. If that's still not okay with you, but that's the only way you really can play a game of D&D, don't upload anything that you've ever created to it. That's gonna be my advice. My best advice would be stay away from it. Get as far from it as you can. I know there are people, like, I have my own objections to Roll20. This is why I say I don't do virtual tabletops. I'm just, it's easier for me to draw up a map, share screen, and then we can kind of go from there. I've done it. It works pretty well. And if I ever try to fudge it, which I never have, I do have players that will call me on that. No, you said it was over here. Oh, right, my bad. Okay, right here. So my players keep me accountable, I keep them accountable, and that's how it works. Among a trusted virtual table, that's how it works. With virtual tabletops, I can kind of understand the allure. There's more of a visual element, blah, blah, blah. But you got to look at the terms of service because, again, this is not your table. It's not your rules. And if you think that eventually WotC won't try to sell you NFTs, which they will, Hasbro has already mulled over doing it with Magic Online and other properties, and that was an article from I think 2 years ago. They have kicked people off for very arbitrary reasons, and some no good reason, and those people have lost all their money and all their cards that they could sell for money by just being kicked off, banned, no explanation, no recourse, no nothing. They've done it before. They'll do it. If you look at the agenda, the ideology now, combine it with the actions of the past, that's exactly where it's going. And if you don't see it right now, I'm telling you, you're the frog sitting in the water on top of the stove. Eventually, the heat gets turned up until you don't realize it, but you're dying. And by then, it's too late.
There's a lot of people also creating content for 5e and for other, and some of them are like on the left. So I don't think Wizards will want them to continue to do that if they want to sell everything. So they should be worried about that. I would be worried about that if I was on their place. What's going to happen?
I counter that with I don't think there's too much to worry about right now. I say right now because this is just a theory of mine. I don't have anything to back it or prove it. But understand something, that open gaming license, it still has to exist. Because if they choose not to apply it to any core rules moving forward, that's fine. Because the 3 core books, and I happen to agree with John. If you have to give Wizards any money, at least just get the 3 core books. And like I've said before, buy all third-party adventures. Play online like this. Play at a physical table. However you want to do it. You could still like buy the other adventures. Curse of Strahd. I know that was one of the more beloved ones. I never got a copy. I don't know what else was good. I think it was anything 2017 on back. Those are ones I would probably recommend. That was before the ideology started creeping in, and the biggest problematic area was just like some of the core rules might have been a little annoying. But I would say purchase those, purchase the third-party content, I don't think Wizards is going to revoke it, because if they did, they would have the whole of the OSR, which was already a problem for them. That was a problem because they ended up having to unvault everything from second edition on back. Actually, everything from second edition, any other TSR stuff, they had to unvault that just to mitigate losses to the OSR. So they're not going to back off of that. It would cause way too much of a backlash. Although, playing devil's advocate here, they may just suffer the backlash and then just paint everybody as, well, those are racist bigots. We don't need to worry about them, you see. And stockholders are going to be like, yes, you need to worry because we're losing money. So I think it's Wizards of the Coast has displayed that kind of hubris before, where it was, well, we got TSR's old properties. What do we do with them? We'll make our own. And what do we do with the old stuff? Leave it where it is. They'll play the way we want them to play, or they won't at all. And I think the OSR was a response to that, saying, guess what? Here's first edition, we cleaned up the rules. OD&D, we cleaned up the rules. Second edition, we cleaned up the rules. BX, we cleaned up the rules, and we made them better. So I don't see the open gaming license going anywhere. I see it stopping. But where it stops, we're already used to it. So I don't see it really, pardon me, if they did reverse, if they did just yank it, it would be the worst mistake they've ever made. Because, having stuff like basic fantasy suddenly just go away, Osric just go away, for Golden Glory, Labyrinth Lord, Lamentations of the Flame Princess, your games, because your games are, based on OGL.
Yeah.
You talk about backlash worldwide, they would damage that brand. Oh my gosh. I want to say they would damage it so hard overnight that it would be unrecoverable. There's no way they would do it.
Yeah.
I mean, one of my friends, Pedro, on Twitter, he just announced Arcanus Runic Edition for 5e. They just dropped that, and he's worried. And I'm like, don't worry about that right now, because my advice to anyone working on future 5e projects, gear them toward something else. Gear them toward the OSR. Gear them toward anything else. Right now, you have a good following. You should have a good enough following that they'll go with you anywhere. Take them with you and listen to them. As long as you're doing what Wizards won't, you're going to be a lot more successful.
That's all.
My phone is quit messing with me. There we go. I had to put my teacup away. I've already had my second cup of that stuff this morning, and English breakfast, man. I'm feeling alive.
It's good. What time is it there?
5 hours less here, I think.
It's it's like noon.
Yeah, because it depends of the of the coast you're in. He always does that. So I have no clue about the hours.
Yeah, there are worse places.
Yeah, because there are people that is really
7
huge
hours, I think.
difference.
And that usually is a
Yeah,
problem.
I think California is, I think, about 5 hours behind me right now. So right now they're looking at, I think, 7 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, that would be a huge difference.
Only recently did I realize that the Satanic Panic was just about D&D basically. Because that is just mostly, right? But it was mostly there are other, but it was mostly D&D.
Mostly, yeah.
In Sweden, there was a cult version of the Satanic
Yeah, but that's
Panic.
because they had cults.
Yeah, cult originated another.
What happened? Here were some of the some of the wild claims made about all this stuff was, like you look back on it then, look back on that then, and you're like, what? But I looked at it back then and was doing the same thing. And like, just to give you a couple of the claims, one of them was that Satanists love to roam around looking for blonde-haired, blue-eyed children to sacrifice at the stroke of midnight on Halloween. And I'm like, well, I'm safe. I mean, my hair's not blonde at all. And yeah, the only way I get blue eyes is if I put contact lenses in. So I'm safe. And I don't think I'm the guy they're looking for, really. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. Where are all the bodies? Where are the bodies? Where are the evidence of all these murders? And I'm not kidding you. The answer that I got hit with back then was they have portable crematoriums.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And there were people on national television here in this country that said, "Oh, you take one of these miniatures and you throw it in a fire, and the scream would emit from the soul that was trapped within it." And I'm like, dude, what you heard was the sound of melting pewter. That's metal fatigue. That happens, and it's a very soft metal. You could just stick it in a frying pan and watch it melt down. You mold it into bullets if you wanted to. What the hell are you talking about? So just the wild and ridiculous claims that were made back then. They were so wild and they were so ridiculous until the 1990s, when Rod Farrell and his friends who played Vampire the Masquerade, permitted by his mother, no less, and back encouraged and enabled by his mother, were so into this game they believed themselves to be actual vampires. They murdered Heather Wendorf's parents before taking off with her to go to New Orleans, because that's where they were going to settle in. They got busted, I think, in Mississippi, and were shipped back to Florida to stand trial. Rod Farrell, there were a bunch of them found guilty. Heather Wendorf was cleared because she didn't have any involvement in her parents' murders. I think they found out she didn't know anything about it. She was just with them. She had no idea what Rod Farrell did. And so they cleared her. She was okay. The rest of them all went to prison. Rod Farrell was sentenced to death and got his sentence commuted to life. And I was like, and here I was with a copy of Vampire the Masquerade when this news broke, and I'm like, God damn it.
So when was that?
This was, I want to say it was like 96, 97.
I was playing Vampire at that time,
Right.
but I didn't know about it.
Yeah, I didn't care.
Yeah.
There was no internet at the time. Well, there
Maybe
was,
maybe it was on newspapers, but
Yeah, I don't think that one got worldwide attention. I know it got national attention. It was a disaster. I was just like, here I am trying to tell people, no, there's no occultism in these role-playing games,
Yeah.
guys. There's nothing there. It's all dice rolls and descriptions. That's really what D&D should stand for. And then this shit happened, and I'm like, oh, I want to, strap him to the chair. I want to throw the switch myself. This guy needs to go.
It's not the game's fault. It's not the
No,
it's
not the game's
It's not
fault.
the video's fault. It's not the film's fault. The people are cool.
The game might have played a little bit of a factor, but you're talking about people who had a very tenuous grasp on reality, enabled and encouraged by one of them's mother. So that's why I'm looking at these people today, and they're all over the one D&D commercial, and I'm like, didn't we learn from last time what happened when you let people with a tenuous grasp on reality into this? Did we not learn that?
The fact they want to play themselves and they need to see themselves in the game is worrying.
What a bunch of sociopaths. I can't relate. I can't relate. Why can you not relate? I mean, look, I'll show you something. This is why I'm like, how do you not relate? This book, Beneath the Moon, written by Yoshi Yoshitashi. I actually have her tarot deck called Tarot of the Divine. Every one of her tarot cards is based on folklore from all around the world. So folklore, fairy tales, you name it. And that deck and this book are what rekindled my love for it. Now, I'll tell you, let me just kind of give you what she says in the book. I'll quote that way. I quote her directly in her introduction. She actually used to work for Image Comics, by the way. So she said, I grew up caught between two cultures. My paternal side was from Japan. They ate rice with pickled plums and decorated their walls with woodblock prints of Shinto shrines. My maternal side came to America on the Mayflower. They ate meatloaf and decorated their walls with keys from their old family farm in Rhode Island. So often, my two halves felt irreconcilably different, but the one thing they had in common was their love of stories. So she found a way from her mixed heritage to actually get both together. All she had to do was, what is our common ground? She could do it. Why can't these people? And the answer is simple, because they're raving sociopaths. Plain and simple. Now, I'm not a shrink, so I can't say I'm diagnosing them officially, but I mean, when you have a lack of empathy, when you have a lack of being able to relate to others on any level, that's everything from sociopathy to psychopathy. And thankfully, I don't think they're psychopaths. Psychopaths are often rather impulsive, and they tend to react rather violently at times, on the extreme end of that. But you know, this is why I say, you know, these kinds of RPGs, as long as they just made a game that was good, is if the company could take criticism constructively, and we're talking like, this rule doesn't really work because if we did X, it breaks it. The only way we can actually use this rule is by this, and it turns it into a railroad, and that's not fun for anyone. Then the company could take that and go, okay, let's try this instead. You know, that's the kind of relationship a company should have with its players and its DMs, especially its DMs, because the DMs will buy more than anybody. DMs buy everything.
Yeah.
I would call myself a DM, but I haven't run a game in a while, so but I got a lot of stuff. So anyway, that's the kind of relationship that needs to be had, not, well, we're gonna take your game and fundamentally change it into something unrecognizable because this person couldn't see themselves playing the game. It's like, Oriental Adventures existed, Al-Qadim existed, Mastica existed, and these were love letters to those cultures. You know, and here's WotC, we're so sorry that those things existed. We're so ashamed of them. It's like, what do you, oh, I get it. I got you. Okay. Well, the rest of us will be over here. You know, it's like, and I tell people this all the time. Okay, so I just sat there and told people, yeah, if you want to play 5th edition stuff, get the 5th edition core books before they're gone. I agree. And yeah, but also, I'd hate to advocate for piracy, but you just happen to find a small crate of them electronically dropped off on the high seas near Tortuga. I cannot officially advocate you pick up that crate and put it on board your ship, but what can I do?
Yeah, well, I don't advocate for piracy, but let's be honest, it's not gonna hurt WotC.
Yeah.
Yo ho, yo ho.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got it. But officially speaking, yes,
Yeah.
get those core books. That way, as the supplements come out, you can go ahead and play with those. Also, another tactic you can take if you're not keen on the high seas nor Tortuga. I understand it's a rough place. You know, lots of rum drinkers there. I know, I'm one of them. But if you're not keen on that, go back and purchase some of the WotC stuff that's already out there. Because what you're going to find, even if you don't like you say, I'm not a 2nd edition guy. No, but there's probably something in there that you can use. I'm not a 1st edition guy. I'm tired of listening to, you know, the Bro SR, you know, bleed on incessantly. Okay, that's fine. But there's probably something in there you can use. And if that's not really an option for you, because this is me, it's all about the message, isn't it? That's what WotC's telling us. It's all about the message. Not about the money, it's about the message. They're the joker at this point. the message you send by buying all the TSR era stuff, is that this is what you want. This is what you want to play. This is what you want to see. Doesn't matter how much they lecture you. This is what you want to play. This is what you want to see. Especially if it works for you. And if it doesn't, at least try to salvage something out of that. Also, those core books are going to cost you a lot less than the newer ones. What,
Yeah.
$50 a piece, maybe 30 on Amazon? Jeez.
The only one we got is the Rules Encyclopedia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I understand that
There
the
you
kids
go.
like I understand the kids like the shiny books and all that. But
Oh yeah.
these new
I,
books, they aren't that good.
no.
I
Yeah,
remember, for example, Advanced Dungeons and Dragons second edition. It had great covers. It had great. It was all colorful, so it looked very very nice, and it was in the 90s, I think
And
92.
it had substance.
Yeah,
know,
it looks good,
Even
but
though this is at the tail end of TSR. We're talking about a time when they're on the ropes financially, and they're being mismanaged horribly, but they still released books with substance. It's just at the time, the timing couldn't have been any more horrible, because it was regarded as a kid's game. And Vampire and all these others were exploring a little more mature content, something that, young adults on up could kind of relate to. So you combine those two things, it's like WCW in the 90s. It was crashing, and WWE was like slowly coming back. It was kind of crazy until they bought WCW, which was wild. I was actually working in the prison that night when it got announced on the TV, and I'm sitting there watching with my inmates going, hey, what's going on? And they're listening on headphones. They're like, oh, Vince just said he bought WCW. I'm like, wait, what? I mean, you talk about shocker. But once they were on the downward spiral, they were still releasing stuff with absolute substance. Unlike today, they're a juggernaut, and it's vapid and it's empty, and anything after 2017, as I understand it, is just this. There's nothing. It's a pretty book, but all it's good for is for putting it on your coffee table and letting it sit there, and it's a conversation piece. Maybe you loan it out to somebody and pray they never bring it back,
We have a
But
ton of books. We should do that. All those Infinity
yeah,
Source books.
but I
I
often said I would run Radiant Citadel as a parody, but I don't want to give WotC the money for it, and I really don't think they can give me the money for it. So they couldn't pay me to do it. As a matter of fact, if I were to release the parody onto D&D Beyond, I wouldn't care if they snatched it up and published it, because I'd be like, look at what they did. That's hilarious. It would be a great troll, but I just don't want to spend the money to. I don't think the laugh is worth that much out of my pocket.
yeah,
Um, there is one exception though, and I'm sure you guys know Yodano. I mean, this guy is like Dragonlance cheerleader, and who can blame him? I mean, he got me really introduced in that world in a very short period of time. Because of him, I picked up Dragons of Deceit. I'm listening to it on audiobook. I gotta say, within the first few chapters, a big battle already broke out. There was so much intrigue leading up to it. There was a great build, great battle. It didn't last long. It didn't have to. And now we're dealing with the aftermath of it. A very good, dare I give this away, a very good, strong female protagonist. Believable, likable, even lovable. And you see she's not good at everything. She has vulnerable moments, but she's been like, as a child, playing and training up to these moments, but still wasn't quite ready for them. And now she's got this colossal responsibility on her shoulders. I am so intrigued by this book. Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman, my thumbs up.
That's a new.
It's a new book. It's classic Dragonlance, Dragons of Deceit. It is awesome. I love it. And Yodano released to Twitter the pre-order for the new 5e Dragonlance. And up until then, he and I had discussed it. I was like, let me know how it is, man. Because you're the Dragonlance guy. You know all about it. Let me know how it is, Jackson. And if it's good, I'll buy it. Well, he was looking at the price tag, and he was like, this is too much. for the deluxe edition, it was like 150, 160 bucks. I looked into it. I spent a couple days digging and digging and digging, trying to get as much info as I could. And finally, I went ahead and bought the deluxe edition. And I told him, I said, look, let me bite the bullet if it's in fact a bullet, because it's kind of unfair for us to ask you to shoulder all this weight. You did so much for me in this. I'm going to give something back. If this is good, I will let you know it's good. And if it sucks, I'm going to try to rip as much out of that book as I can. I'm going to repurpose all the miniatures and tiles and cards and whatever the board game comes with. You know, I can do that. Let me do that for you. So that's the kind of deal we worked out. So I will be checking out the new Dragonlance. So this, if it sucks, I am going to publicly state it. And I'm going to tell everybody what it is I think absolutely sucks about it. If it's good, though, I'm absolutely going to say it. If this is absolutely great. We've already seen them hollow out Spelljammer. There's been whispers of them taking on Dark Sun. I'm like, if Dragonlance sucks, you better not touch Dark Sun, because that's a setting I love. Don't do it. Steer clear of it. If Dragonlance rocks, though, I'll be like, okay, let's see what you got. You know, that's the kind, like, I'm not unreasonable here. You know, we can have a relationship, but honestly, with Wizards' kind of shady business practices, it's kind of like, okay, Wizards, I'm taking this last chance on you. Don't screw it up. But if they do, we still have Osric for Golden Glory, Basic Fantasy, Chalt. I love Chalt. I've got them all in PDF. I've got the hard copies coming. You know, the Wretched Verse, we still have that. I could easily repurpose that board game to Wretched Bastards, no problem. And I still need to grab copies of, I think, The Sound of Madness. That's the one I need to get next, because that looks like so much fun. I have no idea what's in it, but all I know is that cover was really funny.
Yeah.
That one
Didn't sell that
Yeah,
much.
people-
Well, it's people going to the
people like the
mountains
cover,
and
but
being
then-
chased by crazy orcs. A bit like the
Crazy Orcs.
yeah, crazy orcs, high on drugs.
I could so get into that.
Yeah.
I could so get into that. Just a whole bunch of
But it is-
Hunter S. Thompson
the
off
small-
their hands
that's fine.
crazy orcs.
Yeah, basically the concept is crazy orcs, like cannibals. It's a bit like Cannibal Holocaust. They wear the face of their victims.
Oh,
Yes.
oh my
Like,
god,
that's the main idea.
So much fun. I did grab a digital copy of Scurvy because I was like, hey, pirates. I like pirates. Pirates are fun. And I gotta say, Sexual Holocaust, how has that been? Because I know there was a whole bunch of fuss kicked up over it. I was like, this thing has to be selling now. It has to be.
I don't know how
No,
it's selling.
not really.
No. Yeah,
Not
well,
really.
we
Not
never
really.
expect that to sell
Well,
very
yeah.
much because it's horror and most people don't
Yeah,
like horror.
and then
And it's called Sexual Holocaust and it was kicked out of drive-through.
if people who are buying are mostly, well, I was going to say conservatives, but not really conservatives, but more on the right side, they are probably not going to like that one either. So,
I gotta
it's-
say, after going through it, I was like, I love this for one reason, because I would love to put Apollo Jones on the case, you know, especially if I ran some different little tweaks here and there. We kind of pulled it more in the Hellraiser route, kind of mix it like Hellraiser and Law and Order. You know, he's like this 70s cop with that Jerry Orbach sarcasm to him. You know, hey, what's gonna happen to me? You guys got to take me in. I think you'll be just fine. Don't worry. Just tell them you don't believe in ghosts, you know, or something like that, and just use the guy as bait or something like that. It would be like, I've seen so much possibility with it. I'm like, it is totally worth checking out because it looks like it's so much fun, and that's what I think is great about your games. That's why I'm like, when Miguel asked me to be on here, I was like, I was at work and I got that message. I'm like, yo. But what's cool about the games that you guys release is they're inexpensive, they're lots of fun, there's so much variety to them, anybody can play them and have fun, and that's why I released that one tweet and said, stop being afraid, just start having
They
some
are
fun.
easy to adapt to whatever the person wants, even if, oh, I'm gonna take this and put in my campaign.
Exactly.
That's the
The
idea.
structure for that, that's something that I started doing a long time ago. I don't know why it worked for me. And I never thought that it could work for
It's like a
everybody else.
sandbox with plots.
Yeah, but I
and
wasn't.
It's
I
very
thought
open. You
this
can
is
do
what
whatever
I
you
do.
want.
I
Yeah.
never thought that other people could adapt that. But yeah, I think it works because it's very open
Yeah,
ended.
it is. That's what I love about it. Your games, RPG Pundit games, as detailed as they are, and I only have one of them so far. All I have is Star Adventurer. It, you know, you guys leave so much up to the GMs and players that they could craft their own little world in it, and no matter what they do, it's not going to break the game. And I'm like, that's fun to me. When
That's
And sand.
there we go, and got it. All right, cool. So just kind of picking up from where I said before, Zoom completely cut out on us. It really it's when you're narrowing the scope, and I know this is kind of an oddball thing to point out, but when you're telling me orcs are now playable characters, and when I heard that, I went, "Oh, fuck off." There's a difference between opening your world and just giving too many options. Opening the world means that the players and the GM can craft a story as it goes. And from there you can kind of see where it goes. Either it ends on a cliffhanger, it ends with a little anticlimax, or maybe it has a big finish and everybody's like, that was awesome. When you're presenting the player with too many options, you're making the entire world just bland. It's like cooking with no herbs, no spices, no seasonings, nothing. Everybody takes a bite of that steak and they're like,
Or too many of all of them, because you just put everything on.
yeah, yeah. It's like, I mean, you can have an ice cream sundae without piling everything out and obscuring the ice cream, which is slowly melting under everything. So it's there has to be something special. The orcs have to be overpowered for a reason. That's what makes them so formidable to be up against as enemies. You put a player in that's it. There's your team. The rest of the group can just run behind and go, oh, nah, let Biggest smash us over there, just have at it. Anyway, you were saying the coffee shop where you work, that's what it's gonna be like. And even the barbarian is just gonna sit there chewing on a piece of grass going, I'm bored. I should have stayed in my kingdom. Especially if he's Conan. Conan's not gonna be outdone by a friggin' orc. That's just not gonna happen. So there's economy to consider there, and I think about, I don't know, I'll give it the best stat I could give it just based on my own observations. I think about 95% of indie developers and creators get that, and I think that's what they're releasing. And I think the shame of it is it doesn't get the press it deserves, because right now Hasbro has such deep pockets that they can keep funding Wizards, and I got something else to mention about that a little later, but they keep funding Wizards to buy up 2 shelf spaces in all of Barnes and Noble, and there aren't any other people that can buy that shelf space there. That much I get. It's fine. But when I look at that, my first thought is, and this happened in Walden Books as well, when I saw that first comic book shop with just a few more genres than Walden Books had, my first thought was, what else is out there? And now, I heard so many people like rail against this question. I'm like, do you not think that there may be something else out there? On Twitter, we constantly talk about what else is out there. There's no real need to do research. You don't really have to. You can just find us on Twitter. If we're talking hashtag TTRPGs, what do you like? What do you enjoy? What books do you think were great? Or you could just go onto Amazon or eBay, you type up RPG books, there's a ton of them. And it's not just the WotC stuff, it's Chaosium Games, Call of Cthulhu, it's Vampire the Masquerade is up there. What was it, the 25th anniversary edition or whatever, which I've heard was a disappointment. I don't know, I haven't checked it out. I'm not really willing to spend that much money on that book when that many people are telling me that it's a disappointment.
Did you buy 5th edition?
Hmm?
Did you buy the Vampires 5th edition?
No. As a matter of fact, I don't own any of the books that I used to. I really would like to own the 2nd edition Vampire the Masquerade, Mage the Ascension, Wraith the Oblivion. I would love to have my Wraith the Oblivion stuff back because, man, I just save those for a rainy day. And when people are disappointed that their character died, I'd be like, don't throw away that character sheet. Save it. Save that character sheet. Because I'm going to spring a game on you, you're going to need that again. And that way, when I spring Wraith, I'll be like, all right, everybody go dig out some dead characters. Which ones do you miss the most? Okay, here's the core rule book. Make a character for that. Because guess what? That character's back, baby. It gives a second life to that character again. So there's that. And I don't care if it's from D&D. Imagine if you had a wizard who died in D&D. Now they're in the afterlife. They have to cope with that. And not only are they in the afterlife, they're in the afterlife milling around a world, our modern day, that they don't understand. And they find out there are others like him or her. And now that person, whoever that spirit is, has to go to that mage or that medium and say, hey, I need your help. And in turn, I'll help you. I can make you a more powerful caster if you just help me. And it becomes more of a cooperative story that way. It brings a character back. It's a possibility to explore, and again, fun. But I just don't think it should come at a what is that, a $50 price tag for a book like Vampire. You could get Monster of the Week or AFM and probably do the same thing. It just doesn't make sense, and that's another thing. Especially if you're on a budget, few keystrokes, you can find free PDFs. All you need are your dice and your pencils and your paper, people. You sit around, you mark out a character sheet, do it old school, do it like we did, and there you go. Play a little theater of the mind, get a dry erase battle mat if you want to, and some of those little colored gems from the dollar store for tokens, and you're good to go. You're all set. And you can buy tokens on Amazon if you want to. Just depends on how deeply you want to get into it. But it's really what this is all about from the beginning. Have fun. Your table, your rules. Doesn't need to go any further than that. Just have fun. And, bring in your friends, bring in your family. You'll find an organically diverse cross-section of people sitting around your own table. And if there isn't one, and you find someone else you can invite, bring them in. There's no reason you can't. And then you just have fun with them. You build memories around that table. The game is actually secondary. You really care about the game first, but you're building memories with people that you love, people you trust, people that you can have a beer with. If you're underage for drinking, then kick back a few Cokes and some junk food, and that's the biggest threat to your health at the table is the junk food. So no need for all those safety tools that get pushed on you, because you're around that table with friends and family. You've never been safer.
And I had that conversation with the safety tools people, but it's not really a conversation, not even an argument.
It's a monologue.
They know they are right, so they are just telling you.
Oh yeah,
Look, because we like to explore the limits and whatever. And, basically, they are treating role-playing games as a psychiatrist thing.
yeah. It's like, hey, keep your bedroom kink away from my table, okay?
Yeah.
Just a little bit. We could have like a. I mean, this is one I think Sexual Holocaust kind of lends well to. A murder in a BDSM club. Some guy got strapped to a St. Andrew's cross and gutted. You know, no idea what happened to them, but there's this weird little artifact sitting there, and nobody knows what it is. You know, cops can investigate that, take it around, show it off. You know, where where do I find something like this puzzle box here? You know, something like that. So there's stuff like that you can do, but we are not actually engaging in that kind of behavior at the table, and that belongs in the bedroom. It makes more sense there. I mean, in there, you're playing with someone that you're consenting and trusting, but at the same time, you know, you're also kind of making yourself vulnerable to them, or they're making themselves vulnerable to you. That's where those safety tools make sense. They do not make sense at the table. And I don't mind, like if someone wants to come play at a table and they're a sex worker, I don't care. But you know, the consent thing and the lecturing belongs out there where you make your money. It doesn't belong out here where we're trying to unwind and have a couple drinks. You know, it's just not like that. Here we're just throwing dice. That's the biggest harm that's coming to you is the hit points on your character sheet.
And we don't want to play well. When I'm game mastering, I'm not a therapist, so
Yeah.
I'm not gonna help you solve your problems.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm not sitting there going,
Yeah,
roll me a check for it. What is it? Roll me a check for psychic ability and tell me about your mother.
yeah, no, that's not gonna happen.
Not gonna do
I'm
that.
not sure if that's the way they use it, but I think they are trying.
Probably not, but
Probably not. They are just
They're just posing.
pretending they are doing something like that, but they are just.
yeah. And here's the thing: if a therapist, if a licensed psychiatrist decides, you know what, maybe this role playing game would work in a group therapy session, okay, fine. You bought the books. You're gonna run Mage of the Ascension to try to work through some of your patient's problems. I totally understand. I will be there to fill their scripts when they bring them, but because that's what I do. But you know, at our tables, respectively, that's not the way it's going to work. We're there to play a game. We're there, you know, maybe we work through our own issues that way, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, if you face, like me personally, I have a phobia of snakes. You bring us, I don't care what snake it is. You bring a python anywhere near me, don't be standing in front of me because I'm gonna hurt you trying to get away from it. But you know, my barbarian finds himself in a pit of snakes. All he's gonna be is pissed off. You know, I'm not gonna say, well, stop the game. Nope. 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 I mean, you could put Snakes on a Plane on my TV right now, and I'd be like, okay, this is just a dumbass movie, but I'm gonna watch it because I got nothing else. It's the separation of fantasy from reality.
Yeah,
I think that's ridiculous. I love arachnophobia, and I don't deal that well with
Spiders,
spiders.
right?
But I love the movie. I like the movie.
See, I gotta say this.
was
if you
kinda-
imagine there's a tarantula on your arm
There's
right
no
now,
problem. Well,
Don't do that.
if I imagine I was in the movie, well, I kind of was the protagonist.
I don't remember.
He was arachnophobic too, so I kind of felt something there, like the character. But I like the movie. No problem. It's just it's a movie.
If you're watching Indiana Jones and Harrison
there's
Ford is
snakes.
sweeping tarantulas off Alfred Molina's back, you're not gonna freak out. But if it were you, he was sweeping.
Oh yeah,
off,
of course.
Yeah, that'd be like,
That's
nope,
entirely
no,
different.
thank you. But yeah, it's
talking about things. It's not a problem.
This is one of the things that my dad taught me when I was very young. He actually, I mean, this guy, he worked on the railroads, so he was gone, you know, 4 or 5 days a week. Guy was basically living out of a suitcase in hotel rooms, but he always made time to sit down. Like when he was home, he would see me reading a comic book or something and be like, "Can I take a look at that when you're done?" Mm-hmm. And once I was done, here you go. And he's sitting there flipping through it and or listening to the music I was listening to or watching the movies I'm watching or TV shows, and he'd always make it a point to look at me and go, "You know that's not real, right? Somebody gets shot, they don't get back up." And I'm like, "Yeah, that I am aware of." And that's because, you know, he had me handling guns from a very young age. I didn't like them. but I understood once you fired that little, well, it's probably about maybe the tip of my pinky here. Once you fired that thing down range, you could not haul it back. So whatever results were there were permanent. So again, he had me establish a healthy fantasy versus reality check. So as much as I love kung fu ninja movies back in the day and those 90s movies, he was quick to tell me, fights don't really go that way. They don't last for 15 minutes. They last for about a minute and a half at the most, and somebody always gets hurt. And I found out my first ever fight, I found out that was true, and I was like, yeah, I don't really like getting my butt kicked. And then I found out through subsequent fights trying to get away from people that all the flashy kicks and stuff didn't work. So having that healthy fantasy reality kind of separation, that's really, I think a lot of parents have kind of neglected that. And if parents would just take responsibility and establish that with their kids and be like, look, you're not going to walk out of an explosion. You're not Captain America. You're not Black Widow. That's not a thing. That's just made up for movies and comic books and all that kind of stuff. When those things happen, people actually die, and it's very horrible. And once you kind of establish that and it gels in that kid's mind, then they can sit down when you instill sportsmanship in them, stuff like that. Then you start developing a mature mind, and a mature mind can sit down at the table and be like, man, that dice roll didn't go my way. Well, sucks to be you, Kaldar, but gotta roll up another one. Damn. Maybe I'll get better with this one. I'll try a different character class or something like that. Whereas with these people that are playing right or claiming they play, the ones that last 6 sessions and not more, that if their character gets one shot into the past tense, they're gonna be screaming and kicking up, pitching a fit. That's like, where are your parents? How old are you again? 25. What are you talking about? 25? You act like you're 7. That's something else. I just think, if parents did their jobs, we probably wouldn't have a lot of the problems that we have right now. But parents spent too much time trying to be their kid's best buddy, and that did not work out. Not the way it should have.
No, not really. You're old man. You don't like kids.
Yeah, I like my niece. Well, I have 2 nieces. The youngest one hates me, but the oldest one it's a psycho. And she loves horror. When she was little, she said she was a vampire. So I I need to be careful because my sister forbid me to show her things that are too creepy because she loves it. Well, I'm gonna start. Yeah, I'm gonna start playing with her soon and some of her friends.
I couldn't help but notice the interview with the vampire T-shirt. I actually had that T-shirt when I was in high school. When that movie was huge when I was in high school, and honestly, I'm probably one of the few that actually liked Queen of the Damned, despite its slight shortcomings, like new metal over goth. I do kind of I hand wave it because I was like, the soundtrack was awesome. I liked it.
It was a bit disappointing for me because at the time I really liked Anne Rice and I liked the book, and it was like, I hate this.
There was so much left out of the movie, but I mean, come on, if you included that entire movie, you would have to have at least 2 or 3 sequels of that one movie before you could even move on to what Lestat was actually
I wanted to do a vampire game, but I'm not allowed because the other part of the railroad hates vampires. So I'm not allowed.
I played my share of vampire back in the day.
Yeah, I didn't get to play vampire, so I got the 5th edition as a present. But then we start reading and we're like, this is crappy. This is awful.
And it have too much about
what the
safety tools and
oh no, they put that in there.
Play that. Yeah, if you're a Nazi, you don't have to play that. Don't play that game.
On that.
Oh,
It has everything.
Oh
It even
man.
had some kind of polemic that they had to redo the books, the Game Master books, and something else because there was something offensive there about
Zodiac,
Chechnya death
yeah.
camps where they were killing homosexuals, and I'm not sure who else they were killing, probably political enemies.
Probably Malkavians.
Yeah, maybe. I know. I just know that the vampires were involved in that somehow. I think the Ventru were controlling that camp or
And
something,
now vampires
and
are
that was
good.
offensive.
Vampires
Yeah,
do good
probably. I don't know.
things. Vampires are not evil.
Yeah, yeah, nice
Oh
people.
man, come on.
Yeah,
That was half the fun of playing like I
it's
don't even know if I'm pronouncing it correctly, but the Bruja, the real ruffian types.
yeah, they're not. And
I loved playing that.
the
But
gangrels, the what are
uh,
the ones that are like wolves? They're like vegans
Gangrel.
now. Yeah, the gangrels are like vegan vampires.
oh no, come on. They're
They
gonna
drink
start
Bloody Marys.
Yeah, they love animals and blah 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 and blah blah blah.
Yeah, kind of.
yeah, they're gonna starve
They
to death.
soften everything.
Yeah.
They soften everything. It's the
But
usual.
But it's actually good because it happened with that, then it happened with cults,
Yeah.
and then we just started playing indie games. So in the end, it was good.
Yeah, because I didn't know anything about it. The only indie games I think I had before I don't know 3 years ago. The only indie games I had seen were story games, and I think Vengers games. Alpha Blue, I remembered it because of the cover. It has something different.
I
Um,
gotta check that one out. I've only, believe it or not, only in the last 2 weeks have I recently heard of it because Chalt was all over the place.
Alpha Blue is pretty cool.
I
I
don't
also
know.
want to
I
play
don't
Alpha.
know why,
Okay,
but I
check
had
it out.
come across Alpha Blue a few years ago. Not many, but I was just buying mainstream games, not D&D, but the other mainstream games. Modiphius games, for example, they are they are big right now. So,
I've got right now in my collection. I've got a, I mean, I've posted pictures of it. You've seen it. I've got one
Yeah.
shelf that is nothing but D&D. The next is like D&D retro clones. Over in the next cabinet, I've got a lot of like boxed starter kits and like Cyberpunk 2020, Cyberpunk Red, Alien, which I really got to get into that book. I got a Moots. She really wants to play that game, and I'm kind of anxious to run it and maybe combine it with Starship Warden and see how that goes. And naturally, I got
it's a
Starship Warden.
beautiful book, but I think it's good for one shots only.
Yeah, we played the one shot.
You play the one shot.
Alien.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Alien.
Alien. We
Oh,
played. I
really?
don't know. Yeah, if it goes with the campaign, we didn't. Someone else was game mastering.
Yeah.
Although we bought the book, but
I
then we
bought the
ended up
book, but then
selling.
I sell it to that guy because he was
Really
he
interesting.
was really interested in it, and I said, okay, you keep it, and you game master it for us. So
I
uh,
think I think the
I
two
didn't like
the the
that
two
much.
books I'm probably like the two I would consider these mainstream. And I'm like I usually kind of steer away from any games based on major IPs, like the One Ring, and that's because Lord of the Rings, which I have the books right up here in my hutch. When you're reading about the War of the Ring, it's all about Aragorn, Frodo, so on and so forth. It always struck me as you're just going to be like one of the people that history never wrote about. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay, not really my thing. But Alien makes sense to me because just about anybody could be involved in
Yeah.
that. What else? I've got a couple other ones, but anyway, the Dark Crystal and Labyrinth. Those are two of the mainstream games I have that I am most like really excited about running because I love both of those movies. And I despise musicals, but Labyrinth is one I made an exception for because for some reason the music didn't cause a break in the continuity of suspension of disbelief for me. And I have the movie, I have the soundtrack, I have the role playing game, and let me tell you, that is one I just made an exception for it and said, this is really cool. I could probably play Jareth if I run the game, and somebody else can play, Maybe we have 3, 4 people trying to work against me in the labyrinth. That works. The Dark Crystal, I love the whole mythology between the Skeksis and their counterparts, and the Gelflings and all those races. That this is a very magical world. It's very beautiful. In some places, it's very ugly. But those two light and dark kind of opposing forces, I think is a big concept with me. I love that. But like even now with Cyberpunk's become a major video game IP, and I've heard good things about it. But in order to play it, I would have to either upgrade my PC, which I'm not quite ready to do yet.
I played it a bit, but then it's nice. But I don't think it's
I would rather
the
run
story
the game.
isn't that interesting.
Yeah, I would rather run the game from the books, because hey, there's no bugs, there's no glitches, there's no
Yeah.
patches. I think we'd all
I
do a
bought
lot better with
Cyberpunk
that.
Red, not the game, the quick start, the box set. But I didn't like it. I think that they were, I don't know. It was strange that change they decided to do.
I think
It was
what the biggest problem with Cyberpunk Red is, and this is where I found this is what makes the divide. But for me, I kind of like it because it makes it a little more challenging. If you go from the timeline of 2020, right at the end of that timeline, there's a hacker who corrupts everything in cyberspace. He just corrupts the hell out of it. And he does it for a good reason. Probably not the right approach, but I get where that hacker was coming from. And with Cyberpunk Red, you're playing at a time where it's after all that. So you're really kind of the struggle to survive on those streets is a lot more real. And you could still access cyberspace, but you're not really getting much out of it. You have to kind of go in and kind of rebuild as you need to. I think that presents a level of challenge that most Cyberpunk 2020 players weren't used to. And that kind of upsets them because they really can't carry that character from the last game into this one. And, my take on that is you got to remember this is a game of style over substance. Doesn't matter whether you succeed or fail, just as long as you look cool doing it. And I dig that. That's the thing. That's what makes it for me. But
What I didn't like that much was that they tried to update some things, and I think that it should look retro as it was. So, or else it's the same game. It's supposed to be an old Cyberpunk game, and you should access the internet the same way. And okay, there are no laptops and cell phones. That doesn't exist. It's supposed to be retro.
yeah,
Or else you do another, you call it something else.
or you plug that thing into the back of your head, plug a patch cable into something else, and then you're in. And
That's it.
meanwhile your body's just kind of sitting there like this, but you're walking around in cyberspace trying to figure stuff out. I think that works, but it's a world that's not as networked as it was in 2020, and I like it. Again, I can see where some people are like, nope, this is where I get off. But I think Mike Pondsmith has actually put some things in 2020 that have strangely happened. And I'm looking at Red and I'm going, okay, what else is here? What I don't know if Pondsmith decided to make these as predictions, but I think, for his world that he had built, this is what happened. And oddly, it's kind of mirroring ours. We have a lot of style over substance. We have cultural breakdowns. We have economic breakdowns. The collapse isn't going to happen like it did in Mad Max. It's little by little by little by little. It's just going to happen in these little death by 1,000 cut increments. And that was all in 2020. Cyberpunk Red has me going, all right, Nostradamus, what do you got for me? And how much fun can I have, playing this out, telling people, oh yeah, I could have told you that was coming. How did you know? Cyberpunk Red. I told you that was coming. You didn't want to listen. You thought it was just a game. But I think Alien, I think Cyberpunk, I think the Labyrinth and Dark Crystal games, a lot of those games based on major IPs, I think some of them work. I think some of them work well. And I still say, do they, even though they do work, I think you could still get a lot more with some independent games if you would give them a try. If you would give them a try and just apply just that little bit of imagination, put two together, rule set from this one, concept from this one, monsters from this one, and unleash it on your players, I think your players would have a great time, and you can tell them whatever you want. Let them come into this just not knowing what's going on, and then guide them verbally through the character creation process. I guarantee you, they're probably going to have a lot more fun when you blast it out on. Oh, we actually played like 3 games in one. Here they are. Where'd you get them? This website, that website, this bunch over here. Watch. You'll become. I say this. The reason I said the kind of relationship between fans and game developers, that example from earlier, is because your DMs and your players are going to be your biggest advertisers. There's no amount of money and big, gigantic posters with this beautiful artwork that's going to replace word of mouth. Word of mouth is everything. If you can get people's minds and hearts and they're speaking it, guess what? You can just sit back and watch your game sell itself after a while. It's on autopilot after that.
For independent, there's also a problem that may happen.
The wall of the world.
But yeah, then there's that division that it doesn't go from here to there. It
If
will
you're
never.
branded with being a bad guy,
So certain people
it's
will
like I'm
just
not gonna
cut it.
touch this.
I don't care, man. I don't care about this. I'm not going to look at it anyway. So
Yeah.
there's
Some people won't, but I say this, like if you're running the 5e games, have your players understand, hey, once every so often we're going to take a break, we're going to play something else, and I'm going to save it for a surprise, and I think you're going to like it. That gives you time to kind of make some minimal preps and then throw it out there. 10 candles, you don't need any prep at all. You just need one of the settings from the book, and there are plenty. You just have them do the character sheet exercise, which consists of index cards. You have a bunch of D6s there, 10 tea light candles if you're running it in person. If you're running it online, you can forget the 10 tea light candles. You could just use a little notepad or something like that and just mark off the candles as the virtual candles as you extinguish them, move on to the next scene. It works. And I think what's best is like you're not saying, oh, we're going to play this game. And they're like, oh no, I don't care about that. Just tell them we're gonna try out this game. Bear with me. I'm not gonna tell you what the name of it is, but I think you're gonna like it. Just hang in, we'll try it. And if you guys don't like it, we'll move on to the next one. It's great for one shots like that. War Against Darkness, 10 Candles, Welcome to St. Cloud, Actual Fucking Monsters, any of the Giallo series. The Wretched Verse, especially the Wretched Verse, because all the Giallo series is coming to that. I'm seeing it. You guys are like translating it faster than I can buy it. And I'm like, but I'm gonna get it.
There's just one, and it will be published this week.
It's the last year.
Nice.
The memorial.
Yeah, I saw Sisters of the Seven Sins. I was like, that looks familiar.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, I like that concept.
Yeah. Well.
I grabbed all the Giallo series for AFM, and now I'm like, okay, for the Wretched Verse, let's do it that way too.
Sisters has some changes. Well, not really changes, but additions. And for Film Lofts as another bit of thing, another piece of another book, which was the companion. Yeah,
so it's an adventure.
So it's much larger than the original. The memorial is basically the same thing, just different layout and different rules.
Is her heart was the locker room, but nobody had the keys.
Yeah,
That what it's translated to? Oh, sweet.
That's the one.
I
And just from the companion, I took that and the chapter about the Giallo. Obviously, the rules were for punk, so that doesn't matter. So the rest of it,
I can't wait. I can't wait because they look. I'm telling you, just from the Giallo series, they look so much fun. Applying them to the Wretched verse looks like they'd be even more fun. So I'm like,
I
oh
think
boy.
it fits. Yes, I wasn't thinking about the releasing them in this game, but that happens.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, it makes sense because these characters are all wretched anyway. So
In
It
simple,
makes sense because DMs like me and players can buy them twice.
yeah, that's it.
A little double dipping, and I
But
can't. I
not
can't
just
be
that,
mad at
because
them.
some people that are buying Ratchet didn't know
yeah,
about any of that, so no problem. Those didn't even buy the Postmortem Studios book, so it's the first time they are seeing them.
And
Lots of people who entered just because they liked the Ratchet Bastards or the idea, the concept of it. So
yeah, I gotta say, like
yeah,
right after I already had the Giallo series coming, you're
yeah.
like, oh,
That
by the
was
way,
just
I'm
after.
upgrading, I'm moving all those. I'm like, great, I'll already be familiar.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
not
you
looking at
have
any down. I see no downsides here.
Include is
None.
gonna be. It's also gonna be, but probably next year. Though we never know with Miguel. We're gonna wait for
yeah,
that one.
probably that's not urgent because I think that one probably it will be difficult
Yeah, to
to add
The
translate.
things that there's nothing to add there. It's just it's
the one that like really kind of made me raise an eyebrow was Wretched New Flesh. I was like, oh, that looks fantastic.
yeah, that one had some problems the first time because Punk was never promoted, and
It
I
didn't.
think
Yeah, it didn't sell a lot
I did
the
saw a
first time,
lot, and
and
I
I think
think that no one played it.
yeah, and the cover, I think I dig the cover that Green Jim did, but I think maybe the drugs in the
Yes,
middle it might put some people out of the game.
I think so.
It is a game about heroin addicts.
Some people ask that this is this about drugs. There are
Yeah,
drugs in it.
Could
we are
be.
going
Let's
1 minute.
see.
It's not really
Like,
that kind of thing. It's not about
is it
area.
about drugs? I don't know. How much Hunter S. Thompson have you read? It
Yeah,
could be.
not much.
Maybe not.
Yeah.
Depends on how you
Yeah,
run
but
it,
there's a
though.
lot of yeah, there's a lot of William Burroughs, so there's a lot of
Yeah,
drugs
there's a
there.
lot of numbers. So there are
Yeah,
references, but it's not a game
uh,
about.
yeah. I mean, look, right back here on this. I don't know if you can see this table back here, like
Yeah,
in the corner. There is a pile of Hunter S. Thompson books. If I ever had a problem with drug references, it, I have a funny way of showing it. So
We were talking about body horror, Cronenberg,
yeah, the
drugs.
Ratchet New Flash.
Clive Barker,
Yeah,
Wretched New Flesh.
it's
Yes.
not really about drugs. It's more about it's surreal horror and sci-fi.
And let's do some product placement
Yeah,
and talk about the great cover that John did.
Oh wow, yeah, I love that cover.
Yeah.
That cover is that cover is awesome.
now we
My
have
goodness.
some problems with Wulu and Prince from Wulu because
Yeah, I
I
saw
don't
the
know.
one you posted about the
But
color
then,
palette.
well, so last night, the guy whom I sent the proof copies sent me a couple of pictures from the inside of this book, and there were those white lines on the sides,
Okay, completely random. On the sides, top,
the sides and
down.
top, and something like that. Today I got this one, which I ordered for myself. There are no white lines.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So
Correction.
I talked to someone on their customer support, and the woman was answering my mail, so she was trying to solve the problem, but I don't think she understands what she's doing, because I was telling her, yeah, I know what you mean. There are white lines there. I saw that, yeah, but I followed your instructions, and there's those margins that they call the bleed. I use the ones. She said, yeah, but there are white lines here, so they are going to be on print. Yeah, but I did what is supposed to be. So
And they're
there
always
must be
white
some
margins,
problem.
right or not?
I don't know if they are supposed to be there. I don't know, but I've done exactly the same thing since Wretched Bastards, and then 3 weeks ago this started happening. But then it doesn't happen always, because this book here
It's
was printed
perfect.
in Europe,
Yeah.
and it's perfect. The other one was printed in the US, somewhere in the US, I don't know. And that it has that problem. I don't know if what will happen if it's printed somewhere else. Probably it will not have the same problem. I think it's the problem with that printer in particular, in that place, that someone is doing something wrong or different, maybe. Maybe they updated software, or they didn't update software, whatever. Now I'll never know. And I gave up on that. I'm not going to proceed bothering people on customer support. They have no answers to give me. I just give up. I'll have to try
Well,
to find if there's something like Lulu, but not Lulu, because if this keeps happening, I'll have to print the books somewhere else.
yeah.
And well, I print them on drive-through, but people who don't buy on drive-through anymore will want to buy
And
somewhere else.
drive-through
So.
sucks anyway.
Yeah,
Drive-through
but
quality
okay,
is not that good.
drive-through has a different set of problems. Sometimes it happened a couple of times. I got two proof copies that have
One had a
another book
one
inside.
had a poetry book and another one had a photo book,
Yeah,
an
so
art book.
Oh my
oh, this
God.
is quite interesting, but that's not my book.
Like, hey, I appreciate the proof copies, but guys, I did not take these photos. I did not write this poetry. What are
Yeah,
you
the
doing?
poems. It wasn't. There are worse poems than those, but no, that they are not.
Like, what is this? Why did I get Raven Wulfgar's poetry when he was 20? Why?
It would be
What was
kind
this
of
guy thinking?
famous if people would buy it. It was a scenario. I think it was the Seven Bastards, but with poetry.
Yeah, if you got to a customer, it'd be weird.
Yeah.
What are those guys taking?
And it probably happens because those printers they are doing some other stuff and they mix things. I don't know.
I can honestly say, in all the time that, and I'm gonna give Drive Through RPG some credit here. I've never had another book uh printed like all the D&D books I've ordered were all D&D books. They were as advertised. They came rather quickly. They were packaged very well. Same with Lulu. Lulu is even better at times with their packaging and the handling of the books. Very rarely did I ever get a book that was like with a ding corner or something like that. I think the one place I just can't bring myself to order from these days, especially if it's books, is Amazon because I did order an astrology book, which I posted that photo to Twitter. Um, the what was it? The Secret Language of Astrology, I think it was. It's in my bag, but anyway, I got this book and had it delivered to a locker, and it still had like a corner ding to it, and I was like, oh, that's probably someone trying to shove it in there very quickly. But if ever I have them delivered to my home, oh, they get the crap kicked out of them. And I posted pictures, of that on Twitter before too, of those last three Fablelands books. Jeez, what did y'all do? Throw these things for a pass at my door?
I think Amazon is not so bad now for us. I order mostly from Spain, but it comes from the normal mail. So most of the time it's better than the
Yeah.
delivery service.
I gotta say, my book of antithesis, when I found that was the package that was coming from Grand Rapids, Michigan. When I found that out, I was like, oh, cool. And I'm looking at it, and not a ding, not a scratch, nothing on it. And they gave me that the printer's devils thing I guess as a freebie. And I'm looking at it, and I was like, oh, they gave me an entirely like separate adventure. Oh, that is cool, and it's all in one fold out page. I was like,
I need
oh.
I need to jump. I need to go and look for mine. It's Book of Antitheses in the third volume of the anthologies of adventures.
To drive through
Yeah.
200 kilometers.
No, it's probably in Lisbon, and it's near my sister's place. It's in Sacabém. So.
Is Book of Anthology or Book of Antithesis the third book?
No, it's Book of Antitheses and an anthology. They have an anthology. They did an anthology of adventures, 3 volumes.
Oh, yeah.
So it's the
Okay.
one that we were
Death
missing.
and
Yeah, the most
sex and
expensive one. That was the one
yeah.
that we hadn't bought. So I bought it for my birthday gift. So it's almost a month delayed. And I got Carcosa in Amazon, but it was cheaper there. It was cheaper than it got here perfectly, but it was less expensive than in other sellers. So sellers.
Oh, wow. I'm thinking like my next Lamentations purchase will probably be like Carcosa, or I don't remember what the title of that one is with the inverted cross on it. And there's like a couple others. I was like,
Yeah,
those
so
look
that one.
edgy.
Yeah, that looks nice.
I was
I
like, that looks edgy.
I wanted Big Terror on the Streets, but that is out of print.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's the big terror on the streets, but that is too expensive.
Yeah, I've seen like oh, let's see, Death Frost Doom is one that was out of print. I think they just kind of brought that one back. And to be honest, since Lamentations is like all new to me within the past year, I'll be honest, I I see that there is a massive catalog of books,
Yeah.
and I'm like, yo,
The-
like all of it looks like some seriously edgelord stuff, which I
Exactly.
kind of
That is
dig.
like I want this, I want this, I want this. Yeah, I'm
Or
on the same boat.
I still remember, like, I did pick up some PDFs before I left drive through. I think I picked up Eldritch Cock, Better Than Any Man, and Vaginas Are Magic.
Yeah, I have those two in PDF. Yeah, I have
And
those.
I bought them on the title alone because I was like, this is just hilarious. And then I came across one, and I think I might have seen the intro of it. Fuck for Satan. I was like,
Mhm.
oh
Yeah, that is in the that's one of the in the that is on the Adventures anthology, and I'm gonna run that in the on the Wretched Bastards campaign. I'm gonna put it there one of these days, because that's really cool.
I swear your tweet, Sylvia, about running Wretched Bastards into, or what was it, Wretched Bastards into Chalt?
Yeah, yeah, I'm gonna
I
run it.
was like, do it.
They're
Do
gonna go
it.
through a portal and they're gonna end up in Shalt.
Oh, do it. I want to see an actual play podcast of that, because that
Yeah,
I just want the camera centered on that one problem player's face
yeah, that's the
when it
problem.
happens.
That we play in Portuguese, but yeah,
Yeah.
you have
You might not even notice. I don't know.
yeah.
It's probably
He just because it's not that, but it just is because of Venger's politics, and I was still gonna play Salt by Venger. I don't like Venger, and I'm like, shut the
Who
fuck up.
cares? Who
Yeah,
cares? The
but
game
it
is
doesn't
fun.
have to. It doesn't have to like him. He just
yes.
gonna play the game.
Venture is not going to play.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no, I would like to play with Venger one of
I
these
would
times
like
that
to
he
play,
does
but
the
he
plays.
won't be here.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Venture is not standing behind your over your shoulder with
Yeah.
his hooded
yeah.
cloak on, going, "Do this for me." He's not doing that.
So it might be cool if you were.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Well, if it helps, I'll impersonate him. Surprise, motherfucker.
Probably
Yeah,
wouldn't
he
know.
would thought you would
You just
Vennger probably. Yeah,
you don't have hair, so it's
yeah.
maybe you're
Yeah,
Venture.
true, true. I mean, maybe they'll just mistake me as a clean shaven version of Venture. Surprise, motherfucker. Ah, watch them scramble.
Yeah, we played. What was the one?
Dragon Slayer D20.
One shot.
One shot.
Yeah, we played
Oh
the one
yeah,
shots. Just the two of us.
I can't remember the name of it, but
I'm
it's
saying
a
names.
it's
One is
something the story is similar to Cannibal Holocaust and all those cannibal movies.
yeah.
I can't remember the name, but it's about
We did a
cannibal.
review of that,
Yeah, I
but
did.
I don't even remember the
I
name.
can't remember the name.
That one is really cool. It's in the 70s.
Yeah,
You
it's
roll your
70s.
character.
It's very interesting.
Yeah, I believe it or not, I have not seen Cannibal Holocaust. I haven't seen it. And I'm a horror fan, but
Have you seen any
I've
kind of movie? They are all the same.
Yeah,
yeah, I've heard it was rather rough to watch. And there was a movie I watched called The Gates of Hell, and there was a scene in there where this woman starts, she sees the priest who hung himself, then her eyes just kind of go, and she starts like vomiting up everything, and including internal organs. And when I saw the liver come out of her mouth, I went, "Oh, that's unnerving." That kind of grossed me out, but I was like, I
yeah.
get it. But I think I only watched that movie one time. I was like, yeah, I don't think I could stomach seeing that scene
The
again.
worst
That was
part about cannibal
wow.
movies is that you don't really know when they are killing animals,
Yeah,
if
that is
it's
the
true
part.
or
That's
not.
what I don't like when they're killing
Because
animals.
there were
There are
some
part they're killing
they said
alligator.
they didn't they were rubber things, not really, not
Yeah, I
even
I
like
imagine they found
I
I
don't
mean,
know.
if this was filmed in like the 70s or something
Yeah,
like
it
that, I
was.
imagine they found a good way to simulate that stuff. I mean, I used to own three of the Faces of Death movies, and only recently in the past 10 years found out they were all fake. And I remember my mom getting grossed out by them. I remember I was on my way to a tech school. I actually went there for commercial art for a little while, and I'm on my way, and over the car radio, I hear that one of the cinemas was showing Faces of Death 4. And if you sat through the entire movie, they gave you a certificate that said, I survived Faces of Death 4. And I'm like, that's a weekend for me. And I no, I don't think I ever did it. I had planned to do it, but I just never did. Because I was like, why would I go spend money to see a movie that I already have on home video? That just makes no sense. So I never did it. But now I'm like finding out, oh, those were fake. So if they could fake it and make it kind of believable, then I imagine, they can make stuff look pretty rough back then, and people would kind of buy it. I mean, look how the Blair Witch Project did.
Yeah.
Just saying. I probably could have made that movie on my Sony Handycam.
Yeah. Some people still think that's real.
Really?
Yeah, I see the comments. Some people still think that's
In
real.
the age of IMDb.
It never looked that real.
Yeah.
When I saw some of the movies with that, this is
Ah.
obviously scripted. It's not.
Yeah, I like
They aren't that good.
when it comes to horror flicks, I just can't stand like the gore porn. Like Hostel, not really my thing. I have Hostel 2. I watched that. That was okay. Saw was good. I like that series. I didn't see it all the way through, but I liked it.
It became boring, but
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
details of sadism were really fun.
The first movies, but then
The Hell.
like all those things.
I think Hellraiser Inferno doesn't get a lot of love, and I think it kind of deserves a little more than it gets, because this was it wasn't so overt, and it had that sort of neo noir feel to it. It kind of blended a couple of genres together. Not having Pinhead make his appearance until the end, I thought was really good, only for the big twist reveal at the end. I thought it was great. I just, there were people who were like, "Oh, that's not Hellraiser." I'm like, well, yeah, actually, it kind of is, but it's just a little bit of a different take. It's a little more psychological than it had more in common with Jacob's Ladder from 1990 than it did with the Hellraiser from the 1980s. But I still enjoyed it. That and Hellseeker, Deader was also good. Hellworld, I just didn't really care for. I get that they tried to bring it into the video game thing, and concept was good, execution fell flat. I still enjoyed it for what it was. Just a movie I can bake up some popcorn chicken and enjoy that too. That's about it.
Yeah. So,
Okay, so
anyway,
we're gonna
pick
go
up
and
the
pick
cat.
up a kitten.
yes, go pick up Kitty, guys. It was such an honor to be here. I'm so thankful you had me on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the wonderful games too. They're awesome. I love them.
Okay, thank you. Let's make sure that we try not we don't start to suck or annoying people because we write too much.
I'm kind of worried about that.
That
Oh,
people
If
get
people
annoyed.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, we've seen all this, so just stop it.
Don't worry. I'm actually working on a review of all the ones that I have, and I'm trying to make it like a short video, but an accurate an accurate series of reasons why you should pick up each one. So stay tuned for that. I'm working on it. It'll take a little time naturally, because I think the video is probably going to be going about maybe 45 minutes to an hour. But thank you again for having me. It was a pleasure. I had a great time. Go pick up Kitty and give her a little scratch between the ears for me.
I will. Bye bye.
Okay,
Thank you.
bye. See you around.
See ya.